This is Campbell McCrary. I'm a Vice President of Capital Markets here at Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with E2Gold. E2 trades on the venture as ETU and as ETUGF on the OTC. We hope you'll enjoy today's program. It will be available in on-demand replay about an hour and a half after we wrap up. A few housekeeping things to point out. You can ask a question of management in this box that's highlighting right now. You can also get a copy of the presentation, and there's some interesting downloads to their share price and website. And then, of course, while we're going on, you can share this event in real time on social media. You can email it to a pal, and the link will work also for the on-demand. And of course, at the end of the show, you can share your feedback, but only do that at the end. I can only put in feedback once. Amvest Capital, of course, is a New York-based specialist investment management corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. As I showed this before, please note this call is most definitely for informational purposes only. Very pleased to have with us today Eric Owens, the CEO and president. More than 30 years in the mining exploration business throughout the Western Hemisphere, and has been involved in the discovery and definition of gold resources totaling 7 million ounces of gold in North America, Mexico, and Central America, including building 3 million ounces of gold in his previous company, Alexandria Minerals. We also have with us Ellie Owens, Vice President. She is a geologist and lawyer by training and spent several years working as a geologist at various mining and exploration and engineering sites in Canada, including Agnico Eagle's Meadowbank and Rio Tinto's Deavik Diamond Mine. Prior to starting E2Gold, Ellie worked on Bay Street in securities litigation, and now combines her two backgrounds into her role at E2Gold. With that, I pass it over to ETU team to take us through an introduction and an update for many of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Campbell, and thank you to everyone for listening to this presentation. So we'll spend the first couple of slides going over a bit of an overview of the company for those who don't know us, and then we'll dive into some of the updates that we have for those of you who watched our August webinar with Campbell and Amvest. So for those of you who don't know us, we are a junior gold exploration company, early stage exploration, focused on North Central Ontario, so a great jurisdiction. Some of the highlights: we have a massive property package with a starter resource to focus our exploration activities, and we have a really technical management team to drive this property forward. What we're trying to do with E2Gold is discover a deposit and move it towards 3 million ounces of gold with room to grow, and send it on its way to a mining company. We're explorers, we're not looking to be miners ourselves. So a little bit of an overview of what we've done for the past year and a half. We were founded in 2020. We're the co-founders of E2Gold. We've moved forward very quickly. In the last year and a half, we brought this company from a private company to a public company in December 2020. During that time of IPO, we updated the resource to bring it into compliance with 43-101 requirements. We are taking that resource and we've started drilling. We completed our first drill program in February. We started our second drill program in the summer. And on the back of that second drill program, we raised, in an oversubscribed financing, we raised $5.6 million. And we've now been able to take that extra additional raise, put it back into the ground by adding a second drill rig to our program, increasing the number of targets we're trying to hit, and increasing the drilling meterage for this current drilling program. So we're moving forward at even a quicker pace than we originally thought, and that's really exciting for us. From that financing, a little bit about the share structure: 95 million shares issued, 164 million issued and outstanding. This actually slipped through in the PowerPoint. Our share price is actually closer to 20.5 cents currently, so that brings us to a market cap of about $19 to $20 million. Our share structure is fairly tightly held between insiders, funds, and high net worth individuals. And we're very proud of the fund support. Within our first year and a half, we have already 27% of our shares held by funds, which includes Crescat holding 11% or just over 11% of our shares. So that's been a really important and exciting thing for us, having Crescat involved. We keep in contact with them quite regularly, and they've helped sort of give us some ideas for some of our drill targeting that we're doing in this current drilling program, which Eric will go into a little bit later.
So to refresh your memory, for those of you who do know us, we won't go into this in great deal of detail, but for those of you who haven't yet heard our story, what do we like about our project, the McKinnon Zone and the Hawkins Project itself? This slide sort of delineates sort of the reasons why we set up shop where we did here. You can see our 75-kilometer long, very large property package situated here just south of Oba, Ontario, located in a region of emerging mines. We have five or so well-developed or advanced stage projects and mines that have seen new discovery and or redefinition of gold ounces, totaling about 26 million ounces of gold amongst them. And so that these are ounces that are now being brought on stream at various stages, already being mined at Sugar Zone and Island Gold in Borden, and soon to be producing at Magino and Cote Lake. So we like this region. Prior to the last 10 or 15 years of activities, this region had not really received a lot of attention. So that's why we like this region. And of course, sandwiched as it is between active producing regions of Timmins and Kirkland Lake over on the east, and then Hemlo on the west, adds to the story. It's a great place to be. We also like the Hawkins project because we have a starter resource which gives us some meat to focus our exploration dollars on. And this is a shallow level resource, all in the upper 100 meters, roughly 150 meters, I should say, open beyond about 3.5 kilometers, occupying a very small part of this rather large property package. And then finally, it has similarities to the Hemlo deposit. The giant Hemlo mine over here produced 26 million ounces, has produced 24 million ounces of gold. And it has similarities geologically and mineralogically that gives us some confidence that we can actually find something bigger here. And that's what our job is at this point in time.
Okay, so moving into the updates of what we've been doing in the past, month since our last webinar with Amvest. We've more than tripled the property package by adding staking around 1,600 new claims. You can see these new claims in orange here with our previous claim outline in gray. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information about why we decided to stake those and why it's important for the Hawkins property, aside from the fact of just having a large property package. So the Hawkins project sits here in this location with the red star, and it sits within two very important regional features that in combination are associated with many of the gold mining, massive gold mines in Ontario and Quebec, including Timmins and Hemlo. And what those two features are is shear zones combined with Greenstone Belt. So the Greenstone Belt, the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, is a regional series of rock units that when combined with these regional shear structures tends to be a good gold producing section. So this purple line here represents a regional shear zone called the Porcupine-Dester Shear Zone. It hits Hemlo, it goes up and hits Hawkins here, comes down, deflects when it hits the Capus casing structure, comes up and hits Timmins and moves eastward into Quebec. Likewise, many of you might be more familiar with its more famous twin structure called the Cadillac Larder Lake Break, has a similar trend there, and it also goes into Quebec and hits the Val d'Or gold camps. So Hawkins is on this shear zone. We wanted to make sure that we were able to stake all of the shear zone where we interpret the shear zone to be in that area. So you can see this dashed line here represents that shear zone, what we're interpreting as the shear zone, and deflects up this way and then comes down this way. And then as well, this green represents the Greenstone Belt. So that Abitibi Greenstone Belt, that's regional in Quebec and Ontario. We've managed to acquire most of the Greenstone Belt in the Oba area. So that in combination with the shear zones is a common geologic setting for gold deposits, and that's why we ended up staking in these areas. There are also some historic high-grade prospects in these areas, including some very high lake sediment samples in sort of this western claim block over here. So we're very excited about those targets that we've now acquired.
Yeah, as Ellie mentioned, the Greenstone Belt portion of these belts are important in the history of gold mining in northern Canada and in many other parts of similar aged rocks in the world. So deposits and mines like Hemlo and Timmins and Kirkland Lake mostly occur in or close to these greenstone belts. They might occur in some of the granitic rocks with these greenstone belts. So it's an important development for us. And what it really does for us is to add add a lot of area to an already large property package for us to try and take a 300,000 ounce deposit, which is our McKinnon Zone, and turn it into somehow a 3 million ounce by doing resource by doing proper work. We're trying to squeeze out every available piece of information out of every activity. So now we're drilling with 2 drill rigs. We've upped the number of drill rigs, which are focused these days right around the McKinnon Zone, which is located here in the central portion of our property package here. We're actively studying that particular resource. But in addition to the drilling, we are also doing other pieces of work to try and develop new drill targets for the next 6 to 12 months beyond the McKinnon Zone. And one of those activities we'll be starting is a big, rather large airborne survey over in the western block of claims here. So that'll develop targets. We'll be reprocessing that data as soon as we get that, and we'll identify drill targets as time goes on. Likewise, we're also doing IP work in and around the McKinnon Zone, anticipated for this winter, that is, which will help develop new drill targets. And then finally, with all the new claims we staked over here on the east, we will be, because those are brand new, we haven't really built those into this year's exploration activities, but next year we'll be out there doing geophysics, prospecting, mapping as a first step to developing new drill targets there. I'm not going to cover this too much. This shows you the drilling work that we did in our first phase drilling in the winter. It was principally confirmation drilling, testing the Falconbridge data. We've now moved beyond that, and I'm going to speed forward to the next slide here to tell you what we're doing now. Basically, we have 3 target strategies right now for our current drill program, and that's basically shallow level step out is our first target zone, and we've completed 3 drill holes in the shallow level step out, both along strike and beneath, shallow beneath the McKinnon Zone, the target McKinnon Zone, which is shown in purple here, as we try to chase the higher grade zones down. We're still waiting for assays for those holes, but we're confident that we'll be able to start chasing this thing further out, in close space proximity to the McKinnon Zone. Where we're focusing right now is the target number 2. That is a deep set of drill holes targeting the McKinnon Zone at 500 meters. Again, to refresh those of you who have seen this before, in yellow here we show what the Hemlo mine looks like, what's been mined out at Hemlo, with the McKinnon Zone superimposed upon that. And we feel that if there's a footprint for the McKinnon Zone to be turned into something much larger than it already is, that is to try and turn it in from a 328,000 ounce resource, which sits at the surface here, we're going to have to go deep. And if we can hit on 1 or 2 or 3 of these drill holes down, if it has that footprint, then it should have some bulk, some volume, because of the similarities to the style of mineralization at Hemlo. And if we can hit on 2 or 3 of those holes, it will have been a success and will give us a focal point to go back in and follow up those successful drill holes. We've completed 5 drill holes in the center of this right now. We have hit the target zone. We don't know what the assay results are for this. We'll have to wait for those to come. Assays, as with everybody else, are slow in coming. Finally, the third level of target or style of target that we have at the McKinnon Zone or on the Hawkins property are geophysical targets. We've been conducting geophysical surveys, as well as reprocessing not only our own geophysical surveys, but reprocessing the old Falconbridge IP surveys. And those have come up with some good targets for us to try and target both on the McKinnon Zone strike as well as off McKinnon Zone strike.
So many of you will have seen this map. This is the Airborne magnetic signature survey that we did last fall, a year ago. You can see the McKinnon Zone here landing right between this contact, this low magnetic signature in blue, and this green magnetic signature, moderate magnetic signature. And that traces along eastward and hits some of our high-grade prospects to the east, and west hits these other high-grade historic prospects, which we will be drill testing. But as Eric just mentioned, we have reprocessed some of this data and more recently come up with some very interesting anomalies to the north of the McKinnon Zone. So we will now be testing those drill targets off of the McKinnon Zone. And that's an important step to show our commitment to trying to understand the rest of the property and what other deposits there could be on the rest of the property, is we are now starting to drill off of the McKinnon Zone. So it's an important next step for the Hawkins Project. So that's a summary of our work. Just a couple of highlights for you to keep an eye out for. News, we will be drilling till the end of spring, so you should expect some news flow on results coming to the end of spring, and then afterwards as labs sort of delay releasing their assay results. Beyond that, also the results of our next geophysical surveys. We'll be conducting an airborne survey sometime next week on the Western Claim blocks. So that's sort of the news that you can expect coming forward. So thank you for listening, and we welcome any questions.
Here we are. Good. Few questions have come in from the audience, so bear with me. How has COVID affected your original timeline the last 24 months and putting all this together? And seems like you're ahead on your drilling.
Actually, fortunately, it hasn't affected it at all, except for the beginning. So the property was acquired in January 2020, and once COVID hit, there was a brief delay there for 2 months as we were all getting our bearings, but we hadn't really anticipated starting exploration then anyways. So since then, we have taken precautions with COVID, but it hasn't delayed us in any way. You know, we ensure that people are sleeping in single dorms instead of 2 to a room, which they can't accommodate. People have to have a negative COVID test going up to site, and we're implementing a vaccine mandate shortly. But so far, we haven't had indications that that's going to be too much of an issue. So we're fortunate.
Yeah, it's had a minimal impact. I mean, it's costing us a bit more because we haven't been able to double up in the accommodations, which probably, from a psychology point of view, is a good decision to make anyway. But in any case, it's things because we're in a field that people work out in the middle of nowhere rather than in a downtown office building. It's been pretty much business as usual.
Okay. U.S. listing yet? When do you think you might upgrade to a QB or a QX and make it a little easier for people?
So we're in the process. We haven't had yet final approval for the OTC listing. And I think once that gets done, I know we're already trading. I think we're already trading. Is that not correct?
Yeah. Imminently.
Yeah,
really.
It should be imminent.
It's in the next
imminent when that
month.
gets done, when we finally get approval. But I guess effectively we're already trading on the OTC.
Gotcha. Holding costs of new, larger land package.
Fortunately, because the claims are all contiguous, that means that they're connected. You can actually apply anything that you do within this central portion, the 15 kilometers, to the rest of the claims. So it actually really doesn't increase our cost too much. I mean, theoretically, it costs $400 a year is what you're supposed to spend in exploration costs. And you have the first 2 years to acquire that first spend. But we're certainly going to spend more than that, much more than that in our central 15 kilometers, and then it can just apply to the rest of the claims. So it's not going to be more than what we already are budgeting.
Yeah, so the new claims were like 1,600 claims, I think. Yeah. And we already had 900 claims or 800 claims or something like that. So the new claims would cost about $340,000 a year to hold those, to maintain. And because we've made them contiguous, we've probably spent $4 million, $3 or $4 million already on drilling this year, or something in that nature, probably 3. And so we can distribute that accordingly.
Exploration permits on hand for the rest of the property other than the McKinnon Zone?
No, not the rest of the property. So as we go forward and identify drill targets, then we will start to apply for those permits, or we'll apply for them earlier than actually identifying the strict drill targets. But we really mostly have it for the central 15 kilometers. I'll get pushed to this slide here. Actually,
yeah, go down.
So yeah, so this is the area that we really have permits for, but you don't need permits in order to do mapping and some levels of prospecting in the rest of these areas. So, and that's what we're anticipating doing right now. Same with airborne geophysics, you don't need a permit for that.
Excellent.
Yeah. I was just going to add to that, and that was so for the next 6 to 12 months, pretty much all our drilling activities are going to be in this central 15-kilometer stretch where we have permits for.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Adam. Take it from here.
Okay, so great. Thank you, guys. Ellie, question for you. You know, as the core is coming out from the 5 holes that you guys have completed from the fence at where you're trying to hit the zone at roughly 500 meters deep. I'm sorry, is it 500 meters deep, or the holes spaced 500 meters wide, or both?
They are targeting 500 meters deep, so they're going to be about 650 to 700 meters deep in terms of holes. But the target sort of also where we anticipate hitting the zone sort of depends on where we've seen the high grade up closer to surface. So let's say a real target of 300 to 550 meters, anywhere in there is where we expect to hit it.
And the spacing on the fence? Okay, I'm sorry, Ellie, can you repeat that? Oh,
the spacing is 300 meters apart.
300 meters, okay.
Targeting this 500 meter level. Okay. So that results in drill holes that are closer to 650, 700 meters.
Yeah, assuming they don't wander too much and the zone doesn't wander too much and whatnot. Yeah. And how, when you've seen the core coming out, I know you don't have any assays yet, but what does it look like as far as the alteration, as far as the width of the zone, of alteration? Does it look like it's widening? Does it look like it's, intensifying? Do you see, any visible gold? Any sort of a clue on how things are? I know it's early and it's unofficial, but how are things looking?
Well, so far in every hole that we've hit, we've certainly seen the zone, the visual indicators that we see of the zone. And in certain of the holes that we've been drilling, we are seeing increased alteration and increased mineralization. So that's been good and promising. And so far, we've hit what we expect to hit and roughly where we expect to hit it. In terms of widths, we're looking at anywhere from 5 to 20 meters down hole. So
we're seeing consistency in the width. I wouldn't say we've seen anything more wide or wider than what we see at the surface at this stage. So at surface, a true width is somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 25 meters. We're sort of getting a similar estimation of that width at depth so far in the 4 or 5 holes we've seen it. We have not seen any visible gold in the core yet. We're seeing the same sort of alteration minerals That is this quartz, sericite, pyritic, silicified schist, or gneiss, however you want to call it, with deformed quartz veinlets. We have seen a few little surprises from the alteration point of view, depending on which hole we've seen it in.
More epidote.
Some interesting epidote chloride alteration in and around the zone, which is we've seen at surface rarely, but a little bit more at depth for whatever reason. We're still trying to understand that. We've also seen some secondary zones that are not within the McKinnon Zone that have some funny looking alteration as well. And with pyrite, biotite, and other minerals associated with it. So we have yet to decide what all that means as yet. We are sort of seeing, at the surface, of course, the McKinnon Zone lies at the contact between an amphibolite, mostly. It lies at the contact between an amphibolite or metavolcanic and a tonalite or a metatonalite. So we think there's a role for the magmatic aspects, that is the plutonic magmatic aspects, to the evolution of what we see at the McKinnon Zone. And we're starting to see, we do see some K feldspar alterations, pink K feldspars in there, which are good.
Yeah, what we're seeing a lot of in the geochemistry too is sort of an increase in tungsten and zinc associated with the zone. So we're starting to hone in on minerals. So in that case, scheelite and kind of zinc focused sphalerite. So we're starting to see an association with the minerals that are associated with gold, which is going to be helpful, of course, for us to have early indications of the gold zone prior to getting assays back when, labs are backed up and stuff. So we definitely started to hone in on indicators like that.
Ellie and Eric, maybe if you could put some of the alteration that you're seeing at McKinnon in context to Hemlo, that would be helpful. So
the probably the big things at Hemlo were at least geochemically. We start with the geochemical signatures: molybdenum, tungsten, barium were the things that stood out at Hemlo. We don't see much in the way of barium here, and barite does not seem to be important. The tungsten, however, and the molybdenum are clearly anomalous within the gold zone. They're not high grade, but they are present at higher grades than the surrounding non-gold bearing rock.
The interesting thing is the molybdenum seems to be peaking at either end of the zone, so it could be sort of a reaction front. It's not entirely in the zone. Tungsten is associated, though, with the high-grade gold in the zone there. But yeah, the barium just seems to be background high levels within the host rock, but not necessarily higher within the gold zone itself. So
the other thing, from a mineralogical point of view, the potassic alterations is a common thing at Hemlo and McKinnon at this point in time. Now, of course, if you have a sericite schist, it's going to be potassium rich. But we also are starting to see potassium feldspars in and around the zone. So that's an important recognition at this point in time.
I guess we're kind of getting into the weeds right now on the details of the elements. We should give you a bit of an overview of the broad mineralization comparison to Hemlo, this is one of our high grade cores here and core samples. And our mineralization is a quartz sericite schist, which is the same mineralization roughly at Hemlo. So from a broad standpoint, there's that similarity of mineralization there.
And the final point with regard to that is that we have a zone that's in between 15 to 25 meters wide. It's mostly got a rather disseminated character to it, half to 1.5 grams out there, and it hosts, when you get more highly silicified or larger quartz veins with coarse quartz, then you get higher grades, and the higher grades within that broader zone could run up to, in our drill core, up to 30 grams per ton over half a meter or 18 over a meter. So we need to try and find where those higher grade zones are as we go down to make sense of trying to keep this thing keep building on this thing. And that's similar to Hemlo.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe you could relate the overall, kind of grades at Hemlo and how they trend, and the grades and the widths and how they trend at Hemlo, both shallow and deep. And is that something that you're trying to replicate?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. We are trying to replicate that. Now, Hemlo, I'm not sure that Hemlo has a trend one way or another, but there are three main zones initially, all now owned by Barrick, of course, but you have the Tech Corona property, the main zone, or Williams property over here, in Hemlo Gold Mines to the west here. And each of these kind of varied in terms of overall average grade. And I don't have the details of which is which, but basically the average grade varied between 6 grams per ton in one of these zones to up to 11, in sometimes even more, 12 or 13 grams per ton in some of the other zones. So you had variation within each of those three ore bodies, even though they're along the same zone. The thing to remember about Hemlo is that it was discovered in the early 1980s. There was a small resource, of course not a 43-101 compliant resource, but a resource that a company had calculated 20 years prior to that, a kilometer or so away, and it was called the Sucker Zone because it didn't go anywhere. And it wasn't until much later they recognized that it was kind of part of the same whole system. And it wasn't until the 80s that they finally drilled what they considered the discovery hole, and the discovery hole was roughly 3 meters, grading about 11 grams per ton. So you get widths ranging between those 2 to 3 meters of higher grade to probably 6 to 8 to 10 meters of 4 to 6 gram material, sort of thing.
And part of the importance of understanding like the Hemlo story and the timeline of exploration and discovery is that, the initial resource was about a kilometer away from the current mine. And that could be the case for McKinnon. McKinnon, we have a known amount of gold there. Maybe it's the smoke, maybe it's the initial resource, and on this massive property package, it will lead us to a broader discovery. It's hard to know at this stage, it's early stages, but there's room for that sort of movement as well.
Are you guys, you guys were mentioning earlier the molybdenum and the tungsten at Hemlo and the tungsten at McKinnon coming up as scheelite. Are you guys going at the core with a black light? Because you should be able to see that and also give at least visually an estimate between molybdenum and tungsten content between scheelite and powellite, and record that in your logs.
Yep, absolutely. We have a black room set up. We actually have a little educational video to show people about what we're doing with that. We'll put it out sometime, but yeah, we have a black room set up for that. And we do an initial pass of all the core once it comes out.
And we also have a little portable XRF analyzer, handheld unit that we use to get a preliminary estimate of things along the length of the core. So no support.
Mm-hmm.
And was that kind of work done at Hemlo that you can kind of look to? And I don't know. I'm sure you guys have talked to guys on the site there and gotten some on-site type of their experience. Have they done that kind of work?
They wouldn't have in the day, back in the early 1980s, I don't think they would have done that. We haven't talked to anybody recently about it, but I'm sure Barrick is probably out there. They've discovered a new zone. If we go back to the Hemlo, they've discovered a new zone to the west, off the slide, in fact, and I can't remember. I guess they call it the West Zone or something like that. And their focus of their exploration drilling now is off in that new zone. So I'm sure they are applying these techniques at this point in time as well.
Mm-hmm. And are you guys going over the old core with the, I'm not, with the black light and whatnot to record that data?
To be honest, no, we haven't been doing that at this stage. The old core is in the old core that's stored out at site is not in very good shape, and it's hard to know where in the where in the hole you are. Tags and things like that are not there. So the core is there. You can look at it, and you could put a black light to it, but you wouldn't necessarily know exactly where you're at in the hole. The core that's stored at the municipal, the M&DM site in Sault Ste. Marie is not complete. There's only selective zones there that are there. We haven't gone to visit the site to go do that, but we certainly could do that there as well.
I'm just curious. I know we're getting off on a tangent, but maybe coming back to maybe a more central focus, maybe Ellie and Eric, you guys could discuss a little bit about these targets to the north of the McKinnon Zone and how you guys have identified these targets and what your hypothesis is.
Right. So we have a geophysicist who has developed a method of removing the remnant magnetism from these units. And so that's enabled him to sort of focus in a little bit more and locate a little bit more accurately where these anomalies are. And they're kind of up here, and they sort of seem to be a bit pipe-like, I suppose. Not exactly pipe, but...
I'm sorry, Ellie, you have to describe because I can't see your cursor.
Oh, sorry, they're up to the north here, and we just don't have an image of them, but they seem to be a little bit more pipe-like, and there are a couple of them that are also located on McKinnon, and so that's sort of why we're interested in them. We don't have an image here, unfortunately, of those.
Yeah, we don't have an image with us here. It's interesting. He's applied a series of filters to this data that you see here, this airborne data here. He's applied a series of filters, and the principal filter is getting rid of the remnant magnetism, which is quite an interesting study in of itself. But as a result of these 5 or 6 filters he's applied, he's come up with a number of targets, his personal favorites to be sure. And we anticipate testing at least some of those, maybe all of those as time goes on. Hopefully this winter we can get onto those.
And maybe just for those who don't know what we're talking about when we say remnant magnetism, at various times in the Earth's history, the magnetic north has switched between North and South Pole. And when magmas crystallize, they maintain that magnetic signature, whether it's south or north. And so that magnetic signature that's inherent confuses the kind of magnetic signature that we pick up when we run geophysics airborne magnetic surveys. And so it sort of confuses what is true to what we're looking at for exploration versus what was true of the magnetic field at the time of Earth when that magma crystallizes. So we're trying to remove that confusion.
And just looking at this image again, could you just remind us what these cross-cutting magenta lines are? Again, I can't see your cursor, but the ones that cross the McKinnon Zone and roughly are going, north, northwest, or.
So those are Nipissing diabase dikes, and they are actually seem to be somewhat associated with the high grade where it crosses the McKinnon Zone. They do seem to be somewhat associated with the high grade areas. We're not sure yet whether they were, post or syn depositional, but they are very interesting for that fact.
That is, we're not sure what of their relationship to the gold at this stage of the game, the syn depositional to gold. Clearly, they cross-cut the Archean structure because these are much younger, and they may be filling previous crustal weaknesses, a set of crustal weaknesses, obviously there, that those earlier crustal weaknesses may have been what was important to locating the
facilitating
gold
movement.
Gold locations that we see in the McKinnon Zone anyway.
Yeah.
And do these types of diabase dikes, appear at Hemlo or other locations, and what happens at those other locations when the ore zone crosses or one of these diabase dikes crosses the ore zone? Yeah,
this is for central Ontario, these things are pretty common, and they cover a wide area. At Hemlo, I'm not sure what their relation. I'm sure there are diabase dikes there. I don't think there's numerous there as they are here, because they're particularly concentrated here to the eastward and southeast towards Matachewan. One of the dike swarms is called the Matachewan dike swarm. So there's a lot of them in this region. By the time you head westward to Hemlo, I think they start. They're not as intense in terms of numbers as they are there. So I don't know what their relationship is to gold at Hemlo. I suspect not, but I don't. I'm just, I don't know.
Wild guess.
Yeah,
it's wild guess.
Wild guess.
Yeah.
All right. And when do you anticipate, getting a hole into some of those? Again, getting back to those targets to the north. When do you anticipate, testing those?
We're looking at November for those northern targets. Anytime between sort of now and mid-November, I'm starting to drill those. We're really trying to focus on the deeper holes right now. Sort of get those out of the way and see what comes out of that. But we're going to throw in a couple of those northern targets in sort of November time.
And where does the lag on assays currently stand?
It's, about 6 to 8 weeks at this point. Yeah.
Okay. And when do you anticipate completing your fence of the deep holes at McKinnon?
It'll probably carry on through the new year, through the winter.
Some of them we can't drill until the ground is frozen, and so we have to wait till that happens. Yeah. Which, depending on the winter, could be January, February before that happens.
All right. Very good. Let me, at this point, pass it on to Erdy to see if he has any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. How big is your total land position right now? And when we look at the other explorers, juniors around, how big are their land positions?
Let me just go to this map here. Okay, so our land position here is about 75 to 80 kilometers long, and you cannot see my mouse, right? Can't see the cursor?
No.
Okay.
Just put your cursor on the bottom left where the word draw is, and you can play with the little icon.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Here, can you see it now? No? No, there we go. Anyways, this is about 75 to 80 kilometers long. It's about 540 square kilometers. In terms of other juniors in the area, we actually don't have too many juniors in the area. There's a small holding right here by, I believe it's Evolution Global. I'm not sure if they auction
why don't you go
property.
back to the previous map here?
Yeah.
And then you can draw on there as well.
So yeah, there's a small holding here by Evolution Global, and that is sort of being optioned off of a prospector named Gord Hendrickson. But there's not really any other juniors in the area. There is Heartgold, the Heartgold mine just across about 45 kilometers away from us. I'm going to have to just use the bigger map here. You can see it in the orange dot sort of to the edge of this circle in the southwest of Hawkins there. But there's really not too many juniors in the area. And this is a massive land property package for any junior company. This is very, very large.
So we do have to the southwest of our property here, stretching down the shear zone, a number of individual prospectors that hold ground here. And that shear zone does trend down to the southwest and wrap around to the Heartgold Zone. So it's part and parcel of the same Greenstone Belt in our minds. And then there's a few individuals to the south of us itself as well, to that adjacent to our properties that have claims, but otherwise no mining companies yet. But we have had a lot of interest by the mining companies. We were at Beaver Creek a couple of weeks ago, excuse me, and at the Beaver Creek show, the Gold Precious Metals Summit, and we probably saw 8 mining companies, including Kinross, Anglo Gold, Goldfields, a few others that were on the list. Excuse me, and they were quite interested in our project, principally because we're one of the few independents out there with such a sizable property package in a geologically meaty area, and you know, all the others have already made partners with the Barracks and Sprots and Agnicos of the world.
Thank you. And within these new claims, I think you guys mentioned some lake sediment samples. What else you have that can help you to create some targets there? And who did those past exploration work on the new claims?
Yeah, so the lake sediment samples are old data, historical data that government of Ontario ran probably 3 decades ago or so. It was part of a program, a province-wide program, to get data out and collect data and so forth. So that was a fair bit of effort on the government's part, which was good, and it provides some encouragement over there on the west side. We anticipate we are, in addition to what we've already been discussing about doing geophysical surveys, we are also going to be doing a soil geochemistry survey. The initial soil geochemistry survey is going to be, now I don't know if you can see,
doesn't really work.
Drawing doesn't work. How about if we try this blue here? Yeah, you see the blue line that I'm drawing there? I don't know if you can see that or not.
No, but okay. I can see it now.
Okay. So we're going to be doing a soil survey as a first step in the Hawkins portion in that general area that I've drawn there. In the future, we'll expand on this plus our geophysical survey. So the Airborne survey is going to be covering this western set of the claims here. We will also, once that's done, we will follow that up with once we identify the proper geophysical, that is the magnetic anomalies, we'll then probably follow up those with smaller sets of induced polarization surveys to help further pinpoint drill targeting mechanism. So this is really just the first step of a few steps to try and evaluate what is essentially virgin ground. Nobody's really done any work, although there are some prospects out here. There's a zinc prospect over here in the far west of these claims, where that little circle is. So there's a number of reasons to be encouraged. So this is the way we're approaching this, very methodically and systematically. And then at some point we'll even use soil. However, on that west part, outcrop is probably a little bit rarer to be seen than in the Hawkins Zone area, that is in the McKinnon Zone area. And so we'll have to think more carefully about what kind of soil geochemistry test we'll be using for that area.
Sounds exciting. Thank you. Campbell?
Very good. I think we're reaching the top of our hour and wanted to thank everyone for joining. This event will be available in on-demand replay in about an hour, and the original link will work for that as well. So you can forward that email around as you wish. And we always love your feedback. So please, you can share it right now as we wrap up, or when you log out, or in a follow-up email. And that, I'm going to pass it back to Ellie and Eric Owens, the two faces of E2Gold, to close us and give us some parting words and maybe some encouragement on the junior market and gold price while you're at it.
Okay, well, I guess first, thanks everyone for listening. I want to emphasize that one of the things that really distinguishes us from other juniors is our methodology. Can you help me with this? Methodology with the methodology of our exploration process. We're really very focused on trying to extract as much data and information from the data that we collect as we possibly can. So that's not just drilling. We would love to drill all the time if we could, but money doesn't permit. So our approach is very data driven, and that really does make us stand out. As for the gold price and the gold markets, I mean, inflation is real and it's happening. So I think even though the gold markets are a little bit down right now, it's something that seems like there's a lot of reason to hope that it will be up by the end of next year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you guys probably read about this as much as we do. Clearly, gold markets are a small market compared to many of the other markets out there. And with government debt and inflation carrying on and quantitative easing, all this macroeconomic background is good for gold. And doing work the way we're doing is good for finding gold. And we're located in an area that is within the broader realm of a gold-rich province. And so as long as we keep doing what we're doing, we'll find more gold. I'm confident of that.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ellie and Eric, and Adam and Artie, until we meet again. Bye now.
Thank you, Campbell. Thank you, everybody else. Bye-bye.